Trucker Dump, episode 167. In today's show, we discuss lots of new stuff. Cummins' new hydrogen engine, new money for driver training, a new biodiesel, a new speed trap, new road closures and toll increases, and a first ever demonstration of an autonomous vehicle being pulled over by the fuzz. Oh, and of course, truckers have found a new thing to be pissed off about the speed limiter proposal. This episode of Trucker Dump is sponsored by Porter Freight Funding. You can learn more at porterfreightfunding.com/truckerdump.
Welcome to Trucker Dump, where you'll get one driver's insights and sometimes humorous views of truck driving and the trucking industry, and pretty much anything else he feels like dumping on you. This podcast is brought to you by abouttruckdriving.com. Resources to help you understand the world of truck driving through the use of stories and a pathetic attempt at humor.
What up, dogs? Wait, can a middle-aged white guy say that? Well, clearly not very well. Oh, for Pete's sake, just move on, moron. Quit talking. Okay, how's it going out there? I hope you are having a very productive week. I am. The day I'm recording this little segment right here, I ran 646 miles today and still had 18 minutes left on my clock. Pretty darn good for a really, really, really slow truck, I think. So, yay, pat me on the back. And while we're patting me on the back, you are patting me on the back right now, right? At least in your mind? I guess I should tell you that my name is Todd McCann. I am a 25-year truck driver, both solo and team. 22 years of that was over the road. Last 3 years have been LTL. Very happy with my LTL job. And to continue the patting on the back process, I am the author of 2 trucking ebooks. One is called How to Find a Great Truck Driving Job. The other is Trucking Life, which includes a 9.25-hour audiobook if you're interested in that sort of stuff. You can find all that and everything else I do at abouttruckdriving.com. Well, enough back patting. You know, we've got a shorter than average show today, so I'm just going to keep that theme going by getting started. Let's go, dogs! No, that doesn't work either. Okay, last week we talked about the AB5 protest that went on over at the Oakland port, and, you know, we talked about how they basically shut down the port all week long. And, you know, we just like, well, they dispersed and they're going back to work. No harm, no foul. Everybody was happy. The port even said they were going to kind of be a go-between between the governor and the truckers to try to, you know, make their voice be heard. Everything seems like, you know, the port understood what was going on and they felt for the truckers and all that stuff. There was even port workers who didn't cross the picket line, all that kind of stuff. Well, apparently there was more going on than we actually knew. So apparently while all this was going on, the port was hard at work putting together a lawsuit against these drivers who were blocking the way, trying to get a temporary restraining order. Now, I guess apparently by the time they had got this together and were going to go give it to the truckers, that basically the truckers had already dispersed. So some of these drivers were getting this stuff on like this past Friday, and they were expected to be in court on Monday, which was a bit of a shock. But here's the update on that anyway. You know, as often we suspect that we are the truckers, we are the low men on the totem pole, so to speak, and nobody really cares about our feelings. Well, apparently this judge here did not necessarily side with the port immediately, which of course they have all the money, so you'd think they'd be on their side, but Judge Dilbert Gee said that, you know, he just didn't have quite enough information. They needed more time to review the situation before they made their final decision. Basically saying, hey, I'm not going to tell these people that they have a restraining order against them, basically leaving it open for them to protest again if they wanted to, at least for the time being. So anyway, there isn't really a whole lot more to report on this right now, at least until this case is heard, to decide if they're going to get that restraining order or not. But, you know, the truckers cited in the article here just say that basically they're just happy to know that there's even a brief chance that, you know, they might get this AB5 at least they're being heard. They're not expecting that the AB5 is going to be reversed at this position, but they are still after Governor Newsom to do that, which I hope he does. But anyway, if you want to read more about this article, check it out on freightwaves.com. And I'm sure we will have more on this in the future. If not this next story. All depends on what pops up this week. You know, we've been talking an awful lot lately about how hard it is to get new drivers into this industry. And, well, you know, actually the latest infrastructure package had a lot of transportation stuff in there. And part of that was, you know, money to go towards finding new drivers for the industry. And, well, here's an article on landline.media that, well, they're going after a good crowd, veterans. Now, I know there's been money for veterans in the past. I'm not really exactly sure where that came from, but there has been some grant money for veterans to get into the trucking industry somewhere. I don't know who provided that in the past, but now the FMCSA is doing that. They're going to give $3.1 million in grants. I think this is a great idea. Military, you know, they've already proved they served their country and, you know, taught discipline. They know how to get the job done, all that stuff. So, hey, finally something good out of this trucking action plan that Biden implemented. So that's all awesome and stuff. And while we're talking about getting new drivers into the industry, let's just go ahead and address this one over on ttnews.com. That's Transport Topics. Bureau of Prisons expands CDL training for women. So yeah, we're going from the military to prisons. But hey, this just goes to show how desperate the industry is to get people into it. And, you know, let's be honest, not every criminal or person in prison actually is a horrible person. Sometimes they just need a second chance. So we're going to see how this goes. Actually, according to this article, it's been going on for quite some time. You know, a lot of federal prisons have these programs already implemented into them, and, you know, they've had some successful, you know, plenty of success with it. And basically what this article talks about is now it is just opening it up to women's prisons also, which is great, you know, because why limit it to just the dudes? If you're going to go after a new demographic, you know, being prison inmates, you might as well go for women also. Now, they are also requiring on this, it's not just, you know, they're not just going to accept anybody into these schools to learn how to drive a truck, but they're making them also make sure they get their high school diploma before they go in. You know, they get their GED or whatever. They're not even allowed to take this class, take this course until they get their GED. So that's good. It's kind of forcing them into it. Plus, it says they're making non-English speaking inmates, they must take English as a second language, which makes sense because as a truck driver, according to the FMCSA rules, you are supposed to be able to read, write, and comprehend and communicate decently in English. Not perfectly, but, you know, better than just saying C a lot. You know, when somebody asks you, truck number? C. Get so tired of that. It's like, what do we have the rules for if you're letting anybody drive a truck nowadays? Anyway, I'm not going to go into great detail on this one. Just it's interesting to know that they are picking from both veterans and prisons. So we are very desperate. Although I did hear a recent report on another show that I listened to, a podcast, I believe I mentioned it before, called The Newsworthy. And they were talking about how the job market is actually cooling down. It's not quite as hot as it used to be. Now, that's overall. I don't know if that's going on for the trucking industry. I read another article recently that implied that that might be happening for the trucking industry also, that the jobs, you know, you used to, you know, you go out and get a job anywhere in the trucking industry. That's kind of always been the case, but now they can be a little bit more selective because things are slowing down. A lot of drivers were able, or a lot of companies were able to hire more drivers through higher pay rates and, just better pay packages in general. And kind of that higher pay they're saying is kind of coming to a close too. They're going to quit jacking up rates as much. So if you're thinking about switching jobs, now might be the time to do it. It may not get any better. But anyway, if you're interested in more details on either the veterans program or the prison program for women, check it out. Again, the one for the veterans is on landline.media, and the one for the women's prisons is on ttnews.com. Okay, so we knew this truck speed limiter thing was just getting started, right? Well, OIDA wrote an article, and they put it over here on landline.media, and this one's called Speed Limiters Contradict Driver Retention Goals, OIDA says. So apparently, as we said last week, there was about 16,000 comments on this speed limiter rule or mandate, whatever you want to call it. And, for the most part, truckers are against it. Companies are for it. But a lot of drivers say they'll leave the industry if they're forced to use speed limiters. Now, again, as I've said in the past, drivers will say a lot of things. A lot of drivers said they would quit as soon as the e-logs went into effect. As soon as they were mandated, I'm out of here. But guess what? They're still here. So, we'll see if they would actually leave or not over speed limiters. But here is the crux of this article right here. It says in December 2021, the White House unveiled the Trucking Action Plan, and it said the aims were to ensure that trucking jobs are good, safe, and stable through policies that improve driver recruitment and retention. OIDA, and I quote him, nothing in the Trucking Action Plan mentions anything about speed limiters or describes how a speed limiter mandate for commercial trucks would make trucking jobs more attractive. Good point. So basically the whole point of this article is, hey, you want more drivers in the industry? Quit regulating the crap out of us. Just let us do our thing. I mean, who wants to drive a truck going that slow all the time? Some of us choose to do it because it pays really well, but not everybody makes that choice. But if the feds have their way about it, they will get that. Anyway, that's about all I have to say about that article. Really good stuff over here at Landline. I like it when they make good points, which is most of the time. Don't agree with everything they say, but I'm all on board with them right here. Again, find this one on landline.media. Okay, let's head on over to CDL Life for a first. A first what? Well, the first ever public demonstration of an autonomous truck being pulled over by law enforcement. Yep. And you can see the video just by clicking on the link there in the show notes and heading on over there. It's really short, maybe like 2-3 minutes, something like that. The video will start just a little bit into it where it gets right to the meat of the matter. Very, very interesting concept they got going on here. So the question is, well, first, I should say this is Embark Trucks. We have talked about them quite a bit in the past. They're a self-driving vehicle company and, really focusing on the trucking industry. So like I was saying, there's always been the issue of what happens when an autonomous vehicle gets pulled over or needs to be pulled over by officers. Well, that's what Embark is focused on here, and it looks like they've actually got a pretty cool solution. Now, they say that they've really been focusing on trying to have a solution that doesn't require the public sector and, the police departments to invest a lot of money into technology and stuff like that. They're going to be able to do everything they need to do without purchasing any extra equipment. So that's cool. So you can just go on over here and check out this video, but I'll just explain it very briefly, but you really ought to see it. It's kind of cool. So anyway, the video shows a officer flipping his cherries on the truck, and apparently the truck can pick that up in its mirrors and see that there are flashing lights back there, and it will pull over safely to the side of the road. And also that system is being monitored, and if it detects flashing lights, there will be a human operator on their other end to assist in this process. And that is a key part because the officer will approach the vehicle, and of course they probably don't know it's autonomous at this point. And they'll get up there beside on the passenger side where there's actually a screen on the side of it that says that the vehicle has been stopped. It's an autonomous vehicle, but it has been stopped and has been turned off, and it is auto shutdown basically where it cannot restart. So it's safe to approach the vehicle. Then there's a little box that sits underneath the, it's a lock box that sits underneath the passenger bunk side behind the door there. And it gives a phone number, and the officer can call a number that operator who is standing by there waiting for this call, tells them what the code is on the lockbox. The officer opens it up and, discusses whatever they need to discuss with the person and, who represents the company. And there will be paperwork in there with all the registration for the tractor and the trailer and all that kind of stuff. At this point, if the officer needs to go back to his vehicle, he can just close that lockbox and hang up with the operator. And if he needs to issue a ticket or whatever, he can go back and call the number again and go through that whole process again. Once it's over, the cop leaves like normal and the truck leaves like normal, unless, of course, it's been put out of service where, we go through the normal procedure of calling a tow truck or fix-it guy or whatever. So anyway, very interesting process here. It sounds like they've really thought this through. And this has been, like I said, a big problem. Until this, I've not seen any decent solutions to this problem. And autonomous trucks have failed miserably on all this stuff. So again, this is one test under a controlled environment. It was on a public road, but it was tightly monitored, with lots of police around and limited traffic and, specifically chosen highway where there'd be plenty of room to pull over and all that kind of stuff. But hey, making progress on this stuff for good or for bad, autonomous trucks are coming. Get ready. Anyway, check out that video, cdllife.com. Really cool stuff, even if you don't like what it means for the future. Hey, something you're never going to hear an owner-operator say? Yeah, I got the job done, but you can just pay me whenever. 2, 3, 4 months, whatever. That would be insane. So why are you waiting so long to get paid? Screw that noise. Quit being a big dummy and call Porter Freight Funding to get paid within 24 hours. For the record, I'm the one that's calling you a big dummy, not the good folks at Porter Freight Funding. If you want to rat me out, head on over to porterfreightfunding.com/truckerdump or give them a call at 205-397-0934. While you're there, sign up for an account so you can get your money super quick from now on. You can use them for all your collection needs or only those pain-in-the-butt customers. You know who they are. Porter Freight Funding can also help you with brokering, dispatching, fuel cards, insurance, and any compliance questions you might have. So what are you waiting for? Please help the show by getting your keister over to porterfreightfunding.com/truckerdump or give them a call at 205-397-0934. And be sure to tell them you heard about them on the Trucker Dump podcast. And thanks to Porter Freight Funding for sponsoring this episode of Trucker Dump. Hey, you remember from the last episode, I think it was the last episode, we discussed how electric vehicles may not be quite as efficient in the long run, from production all the way to the end as they're quite made out to be. Well, they still are the best for emissions overall, but, it's got some close competitors, including some fuel cell batteries and fuel cell engines. And also, let's not forget about hydrogen engines. And that's what this article over here on overdriveonline.com is all about. Cummins has a new hydrogen engine that offers more capability and lower cost over all electric. It's a very pretty engine if you want to go over here and check this out. It's got that nice Cummins red on it. So they've got two versions of this engine, a 15-liter and a smaller 6.7-liter for smaller trucks. And it's based on this new agnostic platform I think we've talked about in the past. Basically, what that is most of the engines that Cummins is using, from diesel to fuel cell to these hydrogen engines, are basically all the same below from the head gasket down. And everything above that determines what kind of fuel is being used for the rest of, to power the unit. Kind of a cool idea. So again, Cummins is not trying to say that this hydrogen engine is more emissions friendly than an electric or even their own fuel cell version, but it's really, really close. They say it's got about 99%. It gets rid of 99% of the bad stuff. And by bad stuff, we're talking about carbons. And also there's going to be about a 75% reduction in nitrous oxide. And in case you didn't know, the byproduct of running a hydrogen engine is water. Yeah, water. I'm not going to drink it, but hey, it's just water, right? Now, Cummins' whole thought process is that they figure everything will be going fuel cell and electric eventually because of the emissions. Nothing can beat those. But for now, they kind of everybody needs a stopgap. And, they say, hey, since hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe, basically, maybe this is a good option. Although they say it is kind of ironic that these hydrogen fueling stations are very, very few. So how bad is it really? Well, let's give you an idea. Hydrogen's greatest competitor, as we've said, is all electric. Right now, there are 48,000 level 2 DC fast chargers and 6,200 level 3 fast chargers across the U.S. Now, it does not say how many of those are for trucks. Probably not very many. Most of them are for cars. So how many hydrogen stations are there? 48. Yeah, just 48. But they say they expect that to change because part of the infrastructure bill that was passed last year put $8 to $9 billion towards hydrogen hubs and green hydrogen. So basically they think with that money coming out that the industry will basically be ready for it. And, they're going to launch this engine in 2027. So they got a few years to go here still. Well, they got 5 years to go before they release this. And, we talked about in a recent podcast how Pilot had said they would do whatever they need to do, wherever the market goes. They're going to supply the fuel for it, whether that be hydrogen or electric or whatever. They're going to step up. And you got to know that TA is going to do that also, and Love's. All the truck stops are going to have to conform with the way these engines are going. So, like we said a million times here, the electric vehicle is probably the biggest competitor. And as we all know, the biggest problem with electric vehicles is they are extremely costly when it comes to trucks. Well, cars even, but trucks especially. And there's not really a good, solution for over the road. Well, they're saying this new hydrogen engine of theirs really fits the bill. They say they can get about 400 to 500 horsepower out of it, which is pretty standard for most engines out there. So, it's going to feel like less of a change to go to a hydrogen engine than it is to a fuel cell or an electric. So they're thinking that's good. Like I said, plus the upfront cost is just a lot less with this hydrogen engine, and that's a big one. Another issue is range. Apparently, the new Freightliner e-Cascadia offers about 230 miles of range. That's their electric version. And Volvo's newest VNR electric provides about 275 miles, whereas this hydrogen engine can provide up to 500 miles of range. Also, a big issue we've talked about is how long does it take to refill these vehicles when they're out of whatever fuel they're using. They say the average charge time for a truck that has a dead battery will easily exceed an hour, with even more time needed for larger batteries. Fill time for a hydrogen engine, 10 to 15 minutes. Sounds pretty much like diesel fuel, doesn't it? So with all these benefits and really good emissions to boot, they just think this could be a real good stopgap, like I said, for just companies who aren't quite ready to invest in electric or they can't. Electric's going to work great for really short range stuff, local stuff, things they can charge overnight. But over the road application, it just doesn't seem to add up right now. And again, like we said, there's the whole infrastructure problem, which, like I said, there's plenty of electric vehicle charging stations, but most of those are cars. And can you imagine outfitting a truck stop, a modern truck stop with enough electric chargers to power all of those trucks sitting in there when, need we say it, there aren't even enough spots to go around, right? So what do the drivers do when they're sitting out on an exit ramp? There ain't no chargers out there. Probably won't be any at rest areas either. Well, anyway, if you're interested in all this, I just found this article really interesting, and, it's the future, so might as well keep up with it, right? Again, found this on overdriveonline.com. All right, let's head on over to freightwaves.com where we're going to have one of those stories that may never come to fruition, but you never know, and it's fun. It's a fun little article anyway. Texas researchers' new breed of peanuts may boost biodiesel production. The funny thing about this article, they're calling it the Diesel Nut Project. Just kind of like that. So apparently right now in the States, most biodiesel is produced from soybeans, and that's about half of the biodiesel accounted for in this country. But also some of that production is from peanuts, as you know, the current peanuts that we have now. But this 5-year partnership between Chevron and researchers at Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service is trying to focus on engineering a breed of low input peanuts. So apparently, like I said, they do use peanuts for biodiesel right now, but it uses a lot of water, even more than soybeans. And they are trying to just figure out a way to engineer a new kind of peanut that will be produced almost anywhere in the United States, not just dry areas, but anywhere. And just in case you didn't catch the drift here, they're trying to do this with less water. That's the low input part of this. The goal of this partnership is to be able to produce 100,000 barrels per day of renewable fuels by 2030. Well, that's about all there is to say about this particular project. We'll see if anything ever becomes of it, maybe in about 5 years. But for now, before we move on, let me just give you a couple of interesting facts from this article. Apparently, in 2021, the U.S. transportation sector used about 47 billion gallons of diesel fuel. That's an average of 128 million gallons per day. Wow. That's about 77% of all diesel consumption was used for the transportation sector. Crazy. Also, how about a little fun fact? Apparently, converting peanut oil is older than I ever thought. It dates back to the 1890s when German scientist Rudolf Diesel, yes, really, first used peanut oil to power an automobile engine. And at the 1900 Paris World's Fair, he tested an engine that purportedly ran on 100% peanut oil. So there you go. Now, don't you feel smarter? Check out this article on freightwaves.com. Well, this next story should disgust us all, but quite frankly, we're all not surprised at all by this anymore. Found this one on cdllife.com. Tolls to increase by 5% on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. Gee, what a surprise. Yep, this new 5% hike is going to go into effect in early 2023. This marks the 15th year in a row those tolls have increased. I can't remember what it was last time, but you're going to be shocked by how much it costs now when I reveal that here in a little bit. So the tolls have gone from $13.70 to $14.40 for Easy Pass. That's for a class 5 tractor trailer, and from $28 to $29.40 for toll by plate. So that's for each segment. That's the problem right there. It says this new toll rate will go into effect on January 8th at 12:01 a.m. So be prepared for that. Okay, now here's something even more disturbing than just another 5% toll hike. According to Mark Compton, who is the CEO of the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission, he says these rates will continue to climb for the foreseeable future. So every year it will go up a little bit. He says the good news is the percentage will actually go down as time goes on. Yay! Thanks a lot there, Mark. So we got a 5% increase through 2025, 4% increase in 2026, 3.5 in 2027, and then 3% annually from 2028 all the way up to 2050. Crazy. Now he says, and I quote, "It's worth noting that even with these ongoing annual increases, our per mile toll rate continues to be below the midline compared with rates of other U.S. tolling agencies." Funny, because the article mentions right at the bottom, a 2021 study ranked the Pennsylvania Turnpike as the most expensive toll road in the world. So somebody's lying here. Either the study's lying or the CEO is lying. I'll give you one guess who I think it is. Okay, on to the shocker here. I went over to the toll calculator at paturnpike.com, entered in starting in Ohio, and getting off at exit 352, which was the last one I saw. It's called Street Road, and it's in Philadelphia. That is for a 5-axle Class 7 vehicle, which is up to 80,000 pounds, over 7 feet. And, well, let's go ahead and tack on hazmat. Well, it doesn't look like it changes anything. But anyway, if you have an Easy Pass, it now costs you $251.50 to run all the way across the Pennsylvania toll road. And without an Easy Pass, $508.40. Okay, now you can see why there are companies who route around the Pennsylvania Turnpike, right? Can't really say as I blame them. Crazy stuff. But you know what? Sadly, expected from Pennsylvania. Pathetic. CDLlife.com. You know, we've been talking a heck of a lot about safety blitzes recently. Well, this isn't exactly a safety blitz, but it's kind of, well, heads up anyway. Got this one from landline.media. So, you know the Atchafalaya Bridge. That's kind of fun to say, isn't it? Atchafalaya. Yeah, that's in southern Louisiana on Interstate 10. That goes between Lafayette and Baton Rouge. Well, right now, that speed limit is for 60 mile an hour for cars and 55 for trucks. And you're basically only supposed to use the left lane for passing. All trucks are supposed to stay in the right-hand lanes. Apparently, if you get caught speeding on that corridor there, it's $175. And repeat offenders face up to $500 fines. Well, Governor John Bel Edwards just signed a new law into effect that names the Atchafalaya Basin Bridge as a highway safety corridor. Now, what that means is that now they are allowed to double fines for speeding. So, apparently, this is a little confusing here. It says offenders would first be issued a warning before they are given a $350 citation for a third offense. Okay, first one's a warning. Second one's what? And then third one's going to be $350. So I don't know. All I know is it's more money than I want to pay, so let's just go with that. Subsequent offenses would result in a $1,000 fine, which again is double what it used to be. Now, this started on August 1st. So, if you get caught speeding on that bridge or being out in the left-hand lane when you're not supposed to be, if you're not passing, then you will be busted double the fines. Now, I don't know about you, but when I used to go across this bridge quite a bit, you basically make sure there are no cops around you when you are getting on the bridge. You do the speed limit, and then once you're on the bridge, you're free to do whatever you want because, cops can't sit along a bridge unless they're sitting out in a boat in the water somewhere, with all the gators. But, well, apparently they're fixing that problem too because they are planning to be adding cameras at the beginning and the end. And they're saying that if you do that bridge in under 18 minutes, you will automatically be given a ticket. So this is kind of interesting, interesting approach on this, but no longer will you'll be able to just get on the bridge and then just hammer down, So just beware of that. Apparently they're doing this because they said there were 269 crashes with 89 injuries and 2 fatalities just 1 year ago in that stretch of road. So anyway, beware of those cameras that are going up. They're not up yet. They don't have a timeline when they're going to go up, but they are going to be going up. So pay attention to that. They also said that there will be they're going to be adding a bunch of signs, making sure that you understand that trucks are in the right lane only. Left lane is for passing only. So, with the speed limit being at 55 mile an hour on this bridge and you're going to get a ticket if you cross that bridge in 18 minutes or less, well, you better be darn sure you got a good reason to be out in that left-hand lane, right? So anyway, just a heads up. Again, I found this one on landline.media. Okay, here's something you need to know if you're going to be heading through Kansas, specifically Topeka, anytime soon. Found this one on cdllife.com. Starting on August 15th, I-70 in downtown Topeka will be shut down for 3 weeks. Well, just the westbound traffic specifically will be closed from 8th Street to Topeka Boulevard. There will be marked detours. Don't they always say that? And, supposedly it's pretty easy to get around it, or you can just avoid it, the whole downtown area, just by cutting down to, 470 and go down to the toll road a little bit early. Now, what they're going to do here is they're going to be doing some pavement patching, and also they're going to be fixing the Polk Quincy Viaduct Bridge, which is down there. And they do say once the initial patching is complete, they will reopen westbound for just one lane. The eastbound traffic will have one lane all that time also. So again, this is going to run for 3 weeks. If you want the specific detour that they are suggesting, it is right here in this article on cdllife.com. Check it out. Well, that's going to do it for the news. I told you it was going to be a shorter than average show, didn't I? But hark, what heareth I coming into yonder dock?
Hey, yo, bud, where do you want this load of feedback?
Well, we've got one big honkin' email from a listener. And that listener be Eric Lindeau. And you know what? I know how to pronounce Eric's last name because he told me how to pronounce it in the email. Are you listening to me, Emery? I still got my eye on you. Batari Nakunzi. I don't think I'll ever forget that name. And I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. But anyway, Eric writes, "Hey Todd, longtime listener here. I haven't emailed you since your golf swing segment separator sound." Say that 5 times fast. Golf swing segment separator sound. Golf swing segment separator sound. Golf swing segment. I give up. He says, yeah, that went over about as well as New Coke. Of course, I'm teasing. Kinda. No, you weren't teasing, Eric. You didn't like it at all. You told me. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, at one point I decided to put a little sound effect in between each story so you would know that it was a new story starting instead of just putting a pause there. And I tried a golf swing, just went whoosh, and Eric really hated it. And he told me. And honestly, it was just extra work and it didn't seem to do a lot of good anyway. So I took it out. I think it lasted one whole episode. So just like you said, went over about as well as New Coke, which sucked if you never tried it. If you're too young to have tried it, it was gross. But anyway, he continues. Just wanted to let you know there are 3 McDonald's in northern Minnesota with truck drive-up windows. Chisholm, which is the one we talked about last week, Virginia, and Cook. They are all small towns up here in the Great North. I live and run up here all week and have used them all. Keep up the great work, and thanks for keeping us all company. Well, thank you, Eric. That's awesome. So now I have the question, did the evil overlord and I stop at Chisholm, Virginia, or Cook? I don't know. That's a good question. So anyway, thank you, Eric, for telling us about these other McDonald's. And hey, that reminds me, you notice we haven't had a Trucker Grub segment in a little while. A place like this would be a good place to do it. Now, normally, if you tell me about a good McDonald's that you like, I'm going to throw that right out the window because nobody cares about your favorite McDonald's or your favorite Wendy's or your favorite Subway. Heaven forbid, not a Subway. I mean, too many Subways in the trucking world. Am I right? Yeah, but hey, if you've got a unique place that really caters to trucks, write me an email. No, don't write me. You can't write me because I don't accept regular emails for the Trucker Grub segment. It has to be an audio clip, about 3 minutes or less. First, tell me where it's at and where you can park your truck, whether on site or nearby. Tell me about the atmosphere, prices, favorite dinner, what kind of food it is. Maybe it's not a dinner. Maybe it's a breakfast. I love breakfast. I'm a breakfast kind of guy, gotta say. But anyway, always looking for good Trucker Grub locations to tell everyone about so they can go enjoy that grub also. So again, just shoot me an email to truckerdump@gmail.com. Did I say trucker grub again earlier? I don't know. It's truckerdump@gmail.com. So again, thanks to Eric for telling us about these McDonald's. And if you want your email read, or better yet, your voice on the next episode, send me off an email or an audio comment to truckerdump@gmail.com. So with that, let's skedaddle on out of here. But of course, not before naming our awesome sponsor, Porter Freight Funding. You can learn more at porterfreightfunding.com/truckerdump, all one word, or give them a call at 205-397-0934 and tell them the Trucker Dump sent you. Well, tell them the Trucker Dump podcast sent you. That'd sound much, much better. Outie. So I let you off easy by making this a short show today. You know, the less of my wimpy voice, the better, right? So to repay me, you can tap that link in the show notes that will take you directly to Apple Podcasts, where you can leave lots of nice words and a 25-star rating. Of course, you can find those show notes in your favorite podcast app, or you can go to abouttruckdriving.com and search for TD167. You can also find everything else I do there. Wow, episode 167. You know, those numbers are going up pretty darn fast now that I've moved to a weekly schedule. Funny how math works like that. Well, as always, thanks for listening and following the podcast. So until next time, drive safe and stay out of my way. Texas researchers, new breed of peanuts may boost biodiesel.